Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grunt.
What is going on, guys? It is Josh here with Buckeye Bowhunter, and welcome back for another episode. We are super pumped to have you here today because we're going to talk about John and I's trip to Kentucky. We learned a lot. There were some successes, some failures. But we got Bryce in the house today, video and audio and everything. So awesome to have you here, Bryce. And we also got John as always. What's going on, guys? Bryce, how about you? What have you been up to? Turkey hunting, or we were just kind of talking before the podcast? How's that going?
Zero turkey hunting. I had to marry my friends this weekend, so they screwed me on that one. First opening weekend I've missed in years, so I'm itching to get out there. I can't go tomorrow because I got to get to work early, but Tuesday's looking like my first morning, so we'll see how Tuesday rocks.
You got any birds lined up or anything?
I won't be able to go down south where I've done most of the scouting, but two places up here by home where I missed one last year. Probably try there this week. I seen birds there all year before I moved out of that house, but I got one other spot private that I know there's birds at too. We seen them all deer season. Could have killed one in the fall, didn't, but they're there. So I got two spots I can hit during the week. So,
well, let me know if I was going to say, let me know. I know we talked about kind of hooking up, and if you want me to swing out there for a couple hours one morning and try and film you, I'd be more than happy to. So,
right on.
John, I'll tell you what, man, I was like absolutely whooped all week.
Absolutely whooped. I know I'm still on recovery road. I know my feet and my knees are not 100% yet, but that's okay. It was well worth it. Well worth it. That was a trip of a lifetime, man. You know, that's going to go in the record books. It was sweet. I'll just dive into it, you know.
Yeah, let's start out.
Friday, we cruised out there. You know, just to preface this whole story, I think the way we planned it, you know, on the podcast leading up, it did not go that way at all. So it was a pleasant surprise, and we had to think on our feet, and it was fun. It was fun for sure. So the plan was, you know, to get down there, and we got an Airbnb, you know, what was it, 5-10 minutes from the place we were hoping to hunt.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
one of the
getting at.
wildlife areas, and really get to know that property, that piece of public, as best we could. You know, and I think Friday we got down there. Everything was going to plan. We got down there with an hour left to light, jumped out of our trucks and ran up the mountain to try and roost a bird, but the weather was not complying. Light rain, it was downpouring on our way in, downpouring. But once we got to the wildlife area with an hour left, you know, it kind of let up a little bit, but it was still windy and drizzling and light rain and mist. But we got to the top of the mountain and listened, and owl hooted and didn't hear anything, but, you know,
which we kind of expected. We were sitting in the truck when we got there, and it was a long drive. It took us like 5 hours to get down there for some reason.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the truck in the parking lot, and it's just raining, and we were both just like, man, is it even worth it walking up the hill and trying to get them to gobble? Because I wouldn't think. I mean, I've gotten them to gobble in rain before, you know, but roosting them, I don't know. And it kind of proved unfruitful. We walked all the way to the top of that hill in the dark and owl hooted our butts off and never heard a gobble. So we're kind of back to square one.
When we were heading out, we ended up running into some guys. They got in a little bit late, and we ended up talking to them for like an hour and a half. Hour and a half, 2 hours. And, in hindsight, big mistake. I don't think I'll do that again.
I'll give them a shout out, though. Buck and Obsessed Outdoors. They just came out with that video. They killed that bird, John, on their Instagram, and it was a cool video, man. He killed that bird at 71 yards, which sounds a little familiar.
Woo! That's a poke.
Yeah. It was crazy. I'll let you watch that video they posted. It was pretty good. But yeah, we talked to them forever, and I remember they were like, "Man, it's 10:30. We hadn't even been to the Airbnb yet." So just to clarify, though, this was a property that I hunted last year, a wildlife area in Kentucky. I had turkey hunting experience and deer hunting experience on this property. So me and John picked this Airbnb within 10 minutes of this place, for context, so that short drive, we're probably going to be there all week to fill a couple tags. Well, that'll kind of come into play later in the story, but yeah, we ended up hightailing it to the Airbnb, which ended up being not so bad. It was pretty good, right?
I thought it was fine. It was small, simple, close.
It was a cabin.
Yeah, so we got settled in, but by the time we settled in and we were like, let's go to bed. What time are we waking up? It's midnight, and we're like, oh man, we're only gonna get an hour, because expecting the crowds to come in for opening day, we had to beat everybody. That was our plan. We're going to beat everybody. We're going to get to the spot we want to be in. So that ended up happening. 1 hour of sleep. It was a good hour, but an hour nonetheless.
I remember when you come walking and you were so raring and ready. You're like, let's go. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I remember. So last year when I hunted this wildlife area, I showed up at 3:00 and there was a guy in the parking lot already. And I had roosted birds the night before. I wanted to go to this specific spot. And there was a guy there already, just like we ran into in Ohio last year. We got there early as heck, and there's 5 trucks camping out in the parking lot. So I was so worried that we weren't going to get to go. We didn't roost any birds. So we kind of went with like some historical, plans or whatever, like where birds were roosted last year. Was kind of the idea. I had almost killed a bird opening morning last year in this spot, and there seemed to be a bunch of birds roosted there throughout the week. And that's why we ended up wanting to go to this spot, but I wanted to make sure, we beat everybody. And what time we roll into the parking lot? 2:30?
It was 2:30, yeah. 2:30.
We were first.
Nobody's there. We're like, yes, we're gonna get our spot. There was no need to rush, I
didn't think I would have slept. I'll just stayed up.
Well, we were talking and we were just like, why don't we just drive out there and sleep in the truck? Because we'd get probably, the same amount of sleep, and we're already there.
Half hour.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't know. We were both. Yeah, we were just tired anyway. So we're like, well, let's just get some, a really good hour of sleep in a bed, and if that even exists. And,
but again, we were excited. So,
adrenaline's pumping.
For sure. But we beat everybody there. We took our good old time getting back. It was a little bit of a hike, but not too bad. But we ended up getting in our spot, and we had 2 hours to burn. So we just hunkered up next to a tree and played on our phone and, chit-chatted or whatever. But, come, what was it, like 5:15, we started seeing headlamps, meandering through the woods. So we ended up having to flash somebody off that was heading right to the place we were going. So all that, no sleep, leaving early, paid off.
Well, you didn't tell that. You didn't tell the best part, John. So when we're at the parking lot, and we're getting ready, right? We're exhausted. We're all tired, and it rained so much. Everything was soaking wet. I'm like getting ready.
It's not the best part.
I just hear, son of a bitch, and I'm like, what? And John's like, I just dropped my whole turkey vest in this puddle because we were both like the whole parking lot was underwater, and he dropped his whole vest just soaked, dude, and he just put it on.
Oh, yeah, my pack, everything I had fell into like 6 inches of a tire rut. And I grabbed it as fast as I could, but it was soaking wet. And it was cold. It was like 40 some degrees.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a warm morning, man.
Oh, I was so mad. I was halfway back. I could feel the water like getting to my skin and like going down my back. I'm like, oh, this is not gonna be enjoyable at all. Thanks for reminding me, Josh.
Or anything?
Everything was soaked.
Your like slate calls drenched. Everything.
All wet. Everything's all wet. Yeah, soaking wet.
What were the hills about equivalent to Southern Ohio size?
Bigger, much bigger.
Well, by this time, John didn't experience any hills. So, like, we were, like...
Yeah, we walked up a drainage back.
Yeah, we walked this drainage, like, pretty much all the way back and crossed this creek. And essentially, this spot I wanted to hunt, there's, like, this, like, kind of intricate ridge system that comes up to private. And, I mean, like, when the birds started gobbling that morning, they were probably on private or really close to private, right? Because there's a bunch of fields up on top of this.
They're right on the edge.
Yeah, and we're down below them, and it wasn't as green as we thought it'd be, but down in that bottom, it was there was good cover, right?
Absolutely.
But we ended up sitting for like 2 hours. I remember I ended up ditching my water bladder because I sat against the tree, and I think I like busted it or something, and it started leaking. So I was dry the whole time, but then like I'm sitting at the tree, and all of a sudden like I'm like getting wet down my ass crack, and I'm like, what is happening? And I like take my vest off, and my water bladder was just like leaking in my pack. So me and John are both soaked. We're freezing, dude. Like it was cold. John was just like, I was like shivering, and John was like, dude, it is freaking cold. Like dude, the sun needs to get up.
Teeth chattering cold.
Chattering, yeah. I was literally like freezing. And it's like, it's all worth it. We're going to kill these birds, you know?
Yeah.
Team camaraderie.
Exactly. And right at first light, when you expect turkeys to gobble, like we didn't hear anything. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be another Southern Ohio trip that I drug John on, and it ends up being a freaking dud after I like talked it up so much, you know? Right. And we're listening, and about like 10 minutes goes by, and finally like we hear like a whisper of a gobble back the way we came from. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we passed them.
Yeah, and I'm like, dang, like that sucks. And I'm like, you know, we're talking about what we should do, and I think John, you're like, let's just hang tight and all this stuff. And then we hear a group of birds gobble up the ridge right where we kind of thought they were. I thought they would be a little bit further down to the south, but they were. It was actually better where they were for us, I think. But they started hammering.
Oh yeah. So they started, you know, gobble, 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 and they were what, 200 yards away, maybe. So we ended up getting up, and
we debated about that the whole time. I thought they were like 800 yards. I thought they were like 1,000 yards away, dude. I thought they were so far away. And John's like, dude, they're right there.
They're right in front of us. Yeah.
I don't know.
So, where were you guys sitting from each other?
We were right next to each other.
Yeah. We were touching thighs, man.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to stay warm.
Yeah.
So, the verdict is Josh is deaf. John can still hear.
Barely. Yeah.
I think that's what I found out. But they were gobbling. We ended up just kind of moving on them. What did we move? 100 yards on them?
Yeah, we moved 100 yards, but we were working uphill, and we kind of hit like a small bench, and there were 2 down trees like crisscrossed right in front of us. So we were able to like, sneak up to them, and we're like, this is it. We can't get any closer. And as, it became more light, they were gobbling like right in front of us. And then, Josh called, they gobbled, cut him off. He'd call, they'd gobble and cut him off. And then we just stopped because they were obviously answering us. And then I don't know what.
That's an awesome feeling right there.
Yeah, because you know that they know where you're at.
Yeah, we get behind this big down tree, and me and John are kind of like shuffling to try and figure out like where we're going to sit and where we think these birds are going to come from. And there was a drainage up to our left, like a little creek that kind of ran all the way up our left side, and they were on the ridge on the other side of the creek from us. About, I don't know, what do you think, John? 120 yards probably from us?
If that, yeah.
Yeah, and me and John were on this flat, essentially on the right side of the creek, away from these birds. And we're like in the middle of talking, and we're shuffling. I'm trying to get cameras rolling and focusing on things, and like, it's a really panicky moment. And John's like, they just flew down, and I look up, and here's birds flying down across the creek to us.
Yeah, they land like 80 yards in front of us.
Yeah.
You can see them because of that bench. You can see them all.
Oh, yeah, we saw them come off the tree. Yeah.
Yeah, and when that happened, you're like, okay, they're coming in, And we were in a pretty good spot because that bench kind of dropped off behind us, right? So when we're calling, they can't really see back behind us. It's not like wide open, right? If it was like this wide open river bottom, we may have had trouble kind of getting them to come in the way they did, but because they couldn't see that far, they had to come looking.
Right. And
they did, man. There were, 4 Jakes? And they all just kind of come slinking through the woods, and like they're puffing up, and a lot of guys on here might give us some shit for shooting Jakes, but me and John are on a 3-day hunt in a place that we're not very familiar with. We got 2 tags to fill, like opening morning, and it's obvious how intense the pressure is going to be down here because we're fighting hunters and stuff, and we'll talk about how crazy that was later on. But like, me and John were both just like, dude, if we get an opportunity to Jake, let's take it. I think we made that decision before we even left.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially having 2 tags,
Yeah.
And if our first opportunity was a Jake, I was taking it all day. I had never been to Kentucky before, so I definitely wanted to not hold back. I don't need a 10-inch beard and 2-inch spurs to make me happy. I'm happy just being there and getting an opportunity. And we definitely got that. Josh, you're right. We were scrambling to get everything ready. And as soon as they flew down, I mean, it felt like they were on top of us.
Yeah,
I think the video that you're putting together is going to show that, because there's a little bit of not panic in our voices, but
yes,
get it together, and they're coming, we're trying to get a double.
Yeah, we were literally talking about that, like, all right, wait till the count of 3, and John's like, yep, wait till the count of 3. So like, these birds are coming in, and they were kind of in a string, right? They were kind of like one after the other, so they weren't like all the same distance or anything.
And they're like bobbing and weaving between trees, going through, and
like small diameter trees. There's a lot of like small diameter, like stem count, like heavy stem count in here. So like, there's not a lot of lanes, right? And we're sitting in this down tree, so we got like busted up, broken, dead tree limbs between us and them too, and trying to maneuver the barrels and everything. And they're getting like within, the one bird I ended up killing, he was at like 15 yards. And I'd say the other
he was on top
like,
of us.
Yeah, 10, 15, 20, 25 yards. It was something like that. And I get, I picked the bird furthest to the left because I was sitting on the left. And I'm like, all right, John, I'm going to take the left one. You take the right one. 1, 2. And John's like, no, not yet. And I'm like, okay, how about now? And John's like, yeah. I'm like, 1, 2. wait, it was just like we could never sync it. We could never sync up, man.
No
It's not like
way.
hunting turkeys in a field where they're just like you just go and they all put their heads up and you blast them, you know. And like I think it was the third time I attempted to count. I'm just like, well, John, it's either now or never, but I'm shooting, you know. And I go 1, 2, 3, boom, and my bird drops, and you didn't shoot.
Yeah. No, I had no shot.
Yeah, and they all kind of like jump and like flutter back down to the ground, and then the one bird just turns and beelines it back to my bird because he's like flopping around, and he starts like beating him up, you know, kicking the crap out of him, and then you can tell it if you want.
Yeah. So Josh rolls his bird, and they kind of fly away, run away in panic. And then the one turns around, and he could see his buddy, you know, flopping on the ground, and you know, he's going to take his opportunity to get in there and kick a guy while he's down. And
Exactly.
It's hilarious that, you know, once he decides to turn and come back, you could hear it on the video. You know, Josh is like, shoot him, as he's like coming at him. And, you know, I have the gun up, and I'm like trying. And again, like as he's heading back to me, he's leaning in and out of, you know, these little 3-4 inch little trees. And I'm like, I can't get a good beat on him. And again, so Josh rolls his at like 15 yards. So he gets pretty much to his bird, and he's going to start, you know, putting a whooping on him. And I take a shot. You know, he's at 15 yards. And, you know, as he's making his move in and I'm squeezing the trigger, he turns and like ducks through a branch or something, and I just whiff. Complete whiff.
In the video, it was like Matrix, dude. Like John goes, and the turkey's just like, whoa, like
yeah, like
he was moving.
It.
Yeah, it was wild, man. You could see that his shot and his wad just like smacked the, you know, the leaves next to him, and it was where his head was, but his head just like moves out of the way, man. It was kind of because he was like getting ready to like peck the bird that I shot or something like that. He was just, you know, but. Yeah. So he missed, and I was like, what happened? And he jumps up and like lands like 30 yards, something like that. And they all kind of, you know, start gobbling at the gunshot and kind of start working away. And I've watched this part maybe 15 times now. So, because with editing and everything, but, start working away. And I'm like, shoot him, John. He's at 40. I'm like, shoot him, John. He's at like 50, you know, shoot him. And John's like waiting, and we kind of both, there was a moment there, I think we both were like, well, it's not going to happen, you know?
It's over, yeah.
Yeah. And then John is like, we're both looking at these birds, and they're out there, they're out far. I wasn't sure how far, but I was just like, you know, with my gun, I'm like, no way. And John's just like, I think I can hit him from here.
Yeah. It's like at my maximum range, you know, because thankfully I shot and did a little preseason shooting. I'm like, I think I can take a poke at him and get him. So at that point we were looking, we were debating, and I'm like, do I take a poke? And then he just periscopes his head all the way up, and all I can see is just his head
in this perfect opening too.
Just a perfect window. And I'm like, you know what? So I'm literally like kneeling, and I've got this down tree in front of me, you know, at my chest. So I'm literally have a perfect gun rest. Like the gun is sitting on the tree. I'm perfectly stable. Everything's solid. And I'm like, you know what? I'm taking this. And I squeeze it off and just crush him. Just knock him on his ass.
And like when I saw John like running out there, like the further he was running, I'm like kind of counting his steps. I'm like, dude, he is way out past 50, dude. I'm like, this is crazy. And so I get up and I pick up my bird and I start walking over to John, and I get over there and I'm like, dude, we got to step this off. This is crazy. So I start stepping it off, and I get all the way to the thing. Just take a guess, Bryce. How far? What did we say, John?
I'm going to go with 60-something.
75, I think is what it was.
Holy shit.
It was a bomb.
It wasn't super accurate because it was just my steps, but it didn't look that far, right? Because the birds, we could see them pretty well. It just didn't seem like 70 yards, 75 yards, but like stepping it off, it was 70 to 75 with the way I step. I'm pretty accurate most of the time, but
that's nuts.
Rolled him.
That's what the 870 3-inch.
Yeah.
3.5 inch.
3.5.
What round? What loads are you shooting, John?
Number 5. Winchester Longbeard XRs.
See, that's why.
And it locked him.
That's why I like the number 5s. I've always preferred the number 5s over 6s and 7s and 4s because you still get, compared to the 4s, you still get a better pattern. I think there's more BBs, but they also carry their weight better. They carry more momentum because they're heavier. So you get that downrange impact like you would with a TSS load or something like that. When you're shooting 6s and higher, I think you lose a lot of that. Like you shot that hen at how far, and your BBs bounced off of her. How far?
That was at 55, and that was a 3-inch
nitro.
Yeah, that was a federal load.
A federal load, yes, and depending on how big they are and what size. But I think those Longbeard XRs, man, that's the. I don't know if I would ever shoot a TSS load out of a 12 gauge. I don't think it's like you just. I know you were talking about it, but you just rocked a bird at 75 yards, John. Why do you need a TSS load?
There's no reason to, yeah.
Ever, man.
No.
Yeah, but it was wild, man. We were just pumped, we got a double. I was so happy. I kind of felt bad the way it went down because I shot and I got my bird and John missed, and I was like, man, it can't end like this because I don't know how many opportunities we're gonna get. And then John rolls this one, and we're just like, oh, it was just awesome, man. It was an awesome feeling, especially, because of the effort we put into it. That's why we killed this bird, right? First off, both of these birds. First off, knowing where we were going, right? I had hunted there before, and I had some prior intel, and it definitely helps having that because it's just really hard to bank on, well, I'm just going to drive down there on a Friday night and roost a bird and kill him in the morning. We got down there. It was beautiful for most of the drive down there. And then we get there and it's a freaking monsoon, so now you're screwed. And on a 3-day hunt, not having any leads the first morning kind of sucks, right? You kind of are losing a lot at that point. If you wake up in the morning and you go hunting, and you don't hear any birds gobbling that first hunt, that's rough on a 3-day hunt, right? If you got a week or something, it's whatever, but 3 days is quick. And, being able to get down there and scout in the summer or get down there and scout, prior to the season opening, or in my experience was hunting last spring, right, when I was there. So I learned a lot. I use Onyx, making sure I'm marking everything. And that was just the spot that stood out to me. That was this is where we need to be, I think, the first morning. And, making the overall effort to beat everybody there and be the first one there because the pressure was freaking insane. So we killed these 2 birds. And we come walking out. How many trucks were in the parking lot?
It was full. There was 5. And really, that parking lot only fits 3 maybe. I mean, guys are parked up in the mud, and it was,
packed. And that was just the one parking lot. There's probably 4 different access points on this wildlife area. So, who knows how many guys were actually running around in the woods. But
so we got our birds. We're excited. We're walking out. And again, I don't think we prepared for this, being done a half an hour into the opener. And we're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, it's easy. Let's go get another one. Do some really serious scouting. This has given us the opportunity to get way ahead.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Let's talk about this in Kentucky. If you're going to Kentucky, make sure you read the rules. You are not allowed to kill two birds at the same wildlife area. So if you kill a bird on a wildlife area, you're done hunting there. You got a second bird, you got a second tag, you have to go somewhere else. You know, guess how much experience me and John have anywhere else in the state of Kentucky turkey hunting? Zero. So we literally killed those birds. That's great, you know, but we got another tag. Let's try and fill it. We got 2.5 days left to hunt. But we're starting from scratch, man, completely.
Yeah, we didn't even have like e-scouting, you know, intel. But, you know, in all honesty, taking the 2 Jakes was awesome, and I do not regret it at all.
No.
Reason being is on our way out, we ran into, you know, more guys, and, you know, we stopped and chit-chatted with them, and they came from, we were just getting there as we were getting out. I think it was like 9 o'clock, 9:30 when we were walking out, and we ran these 2 other guys, and they're just getting there with a jam-packed parking lot. And they're like, you know, how's it going? Da, da, da. Hey, congrats. We're like, yeah, thanks. What are you guys doing? You know, it looks like you're just getting here. And they're like, oh, yeah, we were at another wildlife area like an hour away. And they're like, we couldn't park our truck. It was so full. There were tents and people camping, and they said it was absolute mayhem. So they're like, we literally got on our phones and found the next closest wildlife area, and this was it. They're like, it's good to see guys, you know, getting them. But that was, you know, eye-opening for me that, you know, we were fortunate enough to get on birds and to connect when, you know, other guys, they couldn't even park. You know, they couldn't even park to get into the place.
That brings me to a question for you guys. Do you think that's going to be banned at some point where you can't overnight camp prior to a hunt? Like,
so me and John ran into this a lot, and it kind of
saw it a lot.
It kind of sucks to
it
me.
Does.
To me, I'm not really a big fan of it because you're essentially just like a lot of these guys are showing up on Thursday, you know, before and just claiming a whole area. We went rolling in. So after we killed these birds, we spent like a whole day driving around scouting and checking pull offs and checking, you know, how much pressure's here. We went to this first road is probably 6 miles, dead ends in the middle of this to the Daniel Boone National Forest we went to. And I mean, we passed 35 trucks in 6 miles, Bryce. It was freaking wild.
Jeez.
Ohio, New Hampshire, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana. There were guys from all over.
And there were dudes camping, and you know, essentially if they show up and they camp, they just kind of call that spot for the whole week. You know, they're just there. Nobody in their right mind is going to roll in and walk past their tent to go turkey hunting.
Yeah, because they got 3 or 4 trucks with 5 guys. Like,
well, there was one spot in particular, without throwing anybody under the bus. We come rolling up. There's probably, you know, 4,000 acres of wildlife area.
Big piece.
Just a huge chunk, right? And there are 2 access points.
Yep.
One's at the very north, one's at the very south. We come rolling into the southern access point, and there was like, we're literally coming down the road, and I'm like, it's the freaking Taj Mahal, dude. Just like tents and like canopies, trucks. They had like grills, dude. They had the whole place. And like, we were nice. We roll up and we're like, hey, what's going on, guys? Like, do any good? And they're like, yep, killed a few. Ha ha ha. Like, they were kind of smart aleck about it. And we're like, oh, cool. You know, like, you guys gonna be here all week? And they're, yep, be here all week. We got all week, bud.
All week. We're not leaving for a week.
Well, we're not.
He kept reiterating it.
So they were blocking like the whole pull-off parking spot.
They weren't blocking it. Like, we could have parked and went hunting, but like, who's gonna do that?
Right.
Like, if you roll in and there's 5 trucks there, and they're like, we're here all week, buddy. Like, okay, you just like claimed 3,000 acres of the Daniel Boone to yourself. Like, give me a
Right.
break, man.
They probably just killed the closest ones to the trucks.
Yeah, who knows? Like, who knows if they even
No,
killed
but
anything.
great question, Bryce. You know, I don't know. We were lucky we got birds, so I'm not bitter.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's a tough situation or a tough thing to talk about because, like, you know, you want people to come from New Hampshire and maybe don't, you know, have just enough in their budget to get a tag and drive down there. You know, our Airbnb was like $600. You know, a lot of people don't have that to be able to stay down there like that, and
Right.
and you know, so you're gonna take a lot of opportunities away from people if you take away overnight camping. But like, maybe make like a designated camping area so that everybody has to wake up and drive and like beat each other to a spot, because that's what it should be. It's like, if you beat me here, like, it's your spot. You know, you got there today.
Yep.
Like, you beat me, I'll beat you tomorrow, bud. You know,
Right.
like, but I don't know. That's just my view on it.
I hear you. I guess it can go either way. Even if they do something like that, designated areas, you still have to drive. All right, they're just going to drive there, park their truck, and sleep on the ground from midnight till dawn. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see it much when I'm down in the area of Ohio. I hunt a lot, but
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I mean,
I figured it'd be
so many people, dude. But we drove, so like, we killed those birds. We went home, or went back to the Airbnb, cleaned them up, got them on ice and everything. And this was the decision, I think, that kind of hurt the rest of the trip for me. We were sitting there and we were very amped up, but we were also exhausted. And we're like, do we take a nap, kind of catch up on some sleep, or do we get moving and go find some birds? And at this point, it's like 1, 2 o'clock, and we're like, dude, if we take a nap, we're not going to get out of here till 5 o'clock. And by then, it's like, it's going to be late to go drive around and see some country. You know what I mean? So we both decided, let's bite the bullet and let's get in the truck and let's go cover some ground. And you know,
we had to get after it because we were starting from zero. So to take a nap was not in the cards for us. You know, I wanted to, you know, off an hour of sleep. Oh, buddy, trust me, I wanted to hit the pillow.
I'll say this. This is why, like, I don't know if it actually helped us or not, because we
made some bad decisions, but
we did make some bad decisions, and I felt kind of miserable for like a day and a half, like, until I kind of caught up. But like, John, if you weren't there, I would have absolutely slept till 6 o'clock. Like, so having you there and having that motivation, that's what I'm talking about. Like, having like multiple dudes, like, you can all kind of just be like, you know, don't be a wuss, let's go, you know, which is helpful.
And it was good because it forced us to drive around. We got to see, you know, in reality, we had never been to the Daniel Boone. The Daniel Boone is huge. There's so much. So to actually find access points that make sense to get into big chunks or small chunks, or I mean, we drove around all day and we hiked our butts off. And to be honest, there were spots that were like, okay, this might work. But then there were a bunch of spots where we were like, no, scratch it off. Maybe this is a deer spot, but there's no way a bird's in here. So it was nice to like put those aside and be like, those aren't happening this weekend. And just cross them off and move on and get to the next one. Kind of gauge the pressure. And I don't know how you felt about it, Josh, but you know, the pressure felt like there was pressure for a reason. You know, those are good ridges, why guys are where they are.
So
why it's hard to sit on a spot because there's always a truck. Well, there's a reason, because it's a good ridge. And there's probably a bird out there.
So we drove that first road and there were trucks everywhere. And my first reaction was like, let's get out of here and go find a place where there's not a lot of people, which we did. And we found a road and we drove all the way to this like back access point. There wasn't a lot of, hunter sign. There wasn't a lot of rutting. Like the road we were on originally was like beat up, like mud ruts along the edge and everything. You could tell people just been driving it like crazy for a day and a half. This road didn't look like that at all. We walked back maybe a mile and a half, did some scouting, found some like old scratchings and stuff, and we're like, all right, we're in it. There's not a lot of people here. Let's come back here in the morning. And we did, and heard a big fat. Me and John both split up. We split up probably a mile apart. How far did you walk after me? Don't forget, my back was not feeling very good this whole trip either. So it was.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, it actually started feeling better the longer the trip went on. Believe it or not.
I give you a lot of credit. Your complaining was not. You didn't complain a lot, and I know I know you were hurting. And I give you a lot of credit for being tough. For sure.
You don't have to say that. I tried to, but I didn't want to be a damper on the trip. But John he bit the bullet. We walked back in the morning. We get probably a mile back. I stay at one ridge, and John keeps going. And we both heard a big fat zero. Both heard nothing. I may have bumped a hen out of a tree in the dark, but I don't know. It could have been a freaking owl for all I know. And we walked all day, man. We went up this ridge, down a ridge. And dude, Bryce, when we talk about these ridges, this is not the Wayne, dude. These are in the Wayne,
you can, you have the opportunity to dive down a ridge and get down in the bottom and come up the backside. Like you can get down into a bowl and come up the backside with a reasonable amount of time. Say a bird was, sounding off on the other ridge. You could make a move. It's not going to be easy, by any means, but it's doable. Some of these ridges out there, it's impossible. Like it's dangerous. Like I wouldn't. Some of them were like sheer cliff drop-offs of like hundreds of feet.
And yeah, even the ones that you could traverse, it was just like literally. It seemed like a half a mile down, and then a half a mile up, and steep as all get out.
Take you an hour.
Yeah, if a bird gobbles on another ridge, essentially you're just like, well, good luck. I'll see you.
Good luck to that guy on the right there.
Yeah. So, and that's where all these pull-offs are. These pull-offs are all at the top of the ridges, and that's where the access paths go. They go out the ridges, and you don't really go off of them. You might dive down a little bit on a spur if some of these ridges had benches, but not all of them did.
Some of them did not have a bench at all, and they just went down 900 feet. It
was crazy. It was crazy. The one that we're talking about, we walked out this ridge, and we're like, it's middle of the morning. We're like looking at deer sign, looking at scrapes on this ridge and trails, and I'm not kidding, Bryce, when I say like the top of this ridge was as wide as the room I'm sitting in, 15 feet. And it just drops off. And this ridge how long did we walk across the top of this ridge? For like 2 freaking hours. It kept going.
It was like 3 miles, maybe. It was wild. Crazy. And at the very tippy top, it felt like walking up the stairway to heaven, man, because it was just clouds, and off the edges it just dropped into nothing. But, there was something up there.
It was pretty cool. So we were actually, John, so we're walking, and John is like, man, we got a double. That was crazy. Probably not going to kill a turkey around here today because it's been pretty quiet. But, man, wouldn't it be cool if I found like a big, Daniel Boone shed? And I was like, yeah, good one, buddy. Good luck. Right. And we get up to the top of this hill, and we were seeing like scrapes going up this hill, and then like a big buck bed on this one little point. And I see this huge scrape, and I'm like, dude, John, check out this big scrape. And John's like, check out that big shed. He like goes running over. I was like, son of a bitch. I was looking at the wrong thing. And he runs over and picks up this huge like 8-point side. It was wild, man.
I got it here. I got to show you.
Yeah, let's see it.
This was on top of that ridge, huh?
Yeah.
Holy shista.
Yeah. That's in like the big woods, Bryce.
That thing's wide. What a giant.
Yeah, he's probably 130, 135 inch 8. I mean, he's not like a super giant or anything, but like for a big woods Kentucky buck, like I feel like that would be exactly what you want to take on like a trip. You know, if you're down there, like he would be beautiful.
Absolutely.
He's got that little curl at the tip. It's a nice shed, man. I was very pumped, but it was just crazy. Like John like manifested it. John like manifested it, dude. He literally was just like, wouldn't it be cool? And literally like 10 minutes later, there's a shed. He's like, I knew it. I knew there'd be one up here. It was so funny, man. I was like, God damn, dude, because I've shed hunted like big woods and stuff. And it's usually sucks, dude. You can't find anything. And at least me, like I've never been very good at it. And probably because I'm not walking up to the tippy top of them ridges like that.
Oh, dude, it would take forever.
I couldn't believe he was laying up there. Like that's like because usually when bucks bed, they're bedding like a third of the way down the ridge, or they're bedding on that military crest, or they're bedding down from the point. You know, this shed, if he lost it when he was bedded, was literally on the tippy top, dude.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He could have lost it walking, I guess. But, odds are he was probably bedded somewhere near there.
No, it was a sweet find. We put the miles on day 2. Miles. It was totally worth it. We now have a basis to go off of for next year.
Yeah.
We walked and we dropped pins. We sat down and we talked and, came up with strategy of, is this a place to hunt? Is this not? There's a lot of oak trees out there, white oaks, patches of white oaks, and you can kind of see the deer trails and how they're using it. Again, this is totally out of my comfort zone because I've never hunted, a mountain whitetail at all. So doing a little research, but it's not totally out of the realm of possibilities that we make a fall trip out of this, because
it could be pretty cool.
That's how no time in the woods is a bad time, because you got a shed, so that makes your whole day right there, whether you kill another bird or not, and 2, you're getting all that intel.
Oh yeah, that's what it turned into. Just like, deer hunt. What tree would you sit in, John? Oh, I'd sit in this tree. How are we going to get up to this tree? Oh, we need a 500-foot rope tied to the base of it so we can climb up the backside of this ridge, But like it was fun. It was an interesting walk. We ended up walking down, so the ridge is like this long spur, and then the tip of the ridge kind of had a really gradual down all the way to this big river bottom. So we took that all the way down, which ended up being okay, because then we're walking like flat ground for a long time. We're like, there's not a lot of turkey sign, not a lot of things going on way up here. Let's go down to the bottom. Because we also talked to a local guy at some sandwich shop who was like telling us like the bottoms are where it's at. So we had that in the back of our mind too. And we got down the bottom and we saw maybe like 2 hen tracks in like 6 miles. So it was
not very good. Yeah.
We would stop and call, and then we'd sit for an hour, and then we'd stop at the creek and it was warm that day, man. It was like 80 degrees. So we'd like dunk our heads in the freaking creek and keep moving. And we ended up making our way all the way back to the road and walking back to the truck that day. And that was about it. I think we were so whooped. I think we didn't even go roost birds that night, did we?
It was, we had to sleep. We had to get back. We had to eat a decent dinner and call it, because in all honesty, we were so tired that making good decisions were not happening. We had to catch up, because we were on an hour of sleep and we were 20 miles in.
John's driving these windy roads that were
oh my gosh,
so narrow, and I'm just like, man, we're way too tired to be doing this, dude.
At that point.
Oh, dude, I mean, they were
No
switchbacks, dude. No guardrails, exactly.
no guardrails. Thankfully, it was asphalted, but dude, driving for hours was exhausting. That drained the crap out of me because you're using your focus, and I don't know what's around the corner, and it's really a lane and a half. And if I make a mistake, the consequences are pretty high. So yeah, I'm like, dude, we gotta go back. We gotta eat and go to bed. I can't roost tonight.
The GD beer.
Yeah.
So
that's what we did.
A lot of them roads, like the windy roads, were they already up on top of the ridges, or was this you driving up and down them?
Up and down them the whole way. Yeah. We found a couple spots that we were like, maybe, and then like we found this one spot I found that I thought was going to be really good, and we drove freaking 30 minutes out of the way to get to it, and it's in like the middle of God knows where, and we're just like, man, this is a little sketchy. They're passing some goofy houses to get back to it, and we park and we get out and we start walking, and it's like a kind of a shorter ridge compared to a lot of the other ridges, and the topography's, I don't know, it didn't really look much different than anything else, but we get there and we like walk out to the end, and you're just up on a cliff. It just dropped off on all sides everywhere. So like you're kind of up on this island, and like, oh, this ain't no good. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It was literally sheer faced rock.
Sheer,
like, straight down.
Like kind of like 89 degrees, like more than 90 back. You know what I mean?
Right.
We did find a really cool pinch point though around this cliff, which might
shoot
be
a deer there.
Deer hunt. Yeah,
you could shoot a deer there. Yep. Hopefully, he doesn't jump off.
But yeah, what happened the next morning? What did we do? We got up early and we went back to the road where all the people were.
That's right.
It was Monday at this point, and our thoughts was what John was saying earlier. Like, okay, where we went, there wasn't a lot of people, and it sucked. There's a reason there's a bunch of people out here, right? It's Monday. I bet you 50% of them went home, and that's kind of what we experienced, right? Not a lot of people are taking off work days to turkey hunt. A lot of people are just down there for Saturday and Sunday, and we rolled in. There was a reason we picked this spot, right?
Oh yeah, so we drove it, and we ended up stopping for whatever reason. I think we saw a guy at his truck. I think it was Sunday, and we're like, "Hey man, how's it going out here?" He goes, I'm packing up, heading home." He goes, "They're here." He goes, "I had one at 60 yards. He hung up, but I couldn't get him any closer." And he's like, "There were 3 more behind him," and we're like, "Ooh," He's like, I don't care about telling you because I'm heading home. Good luck. So we just kept driving, but we came back the next day. We got a good night's rest. We got there crazy early. Again, crazy early. But when we pulled in, we drove this road, and again, there were maybe, I don't know, 10 pull-offs. And we got there crazy early. There were 2 trucks there already on like other ridges. And we're like, oh, well, thankfully the one that we wanted to be on, nobody was there. So we felt good about that. And we worked our way back and hunted that one. We ended up hearing a gobble, and we chased him.
Yeah. So we got like right at first light. We didn't want to kind of like go just busting in. I mean, it was a long ridge, but we probably only went in about a half mile, and we're like, we'll just listen for a little bit. And we listened, and there was this big field kind of up maybe another half mile from us, and we kind of worked our way to that field as it was getting light, just listening as we went. And by the time we got to that field, it was pretty well lit. And me and John we're just like, man, it's going to be another one of them, where we don't hear anything. And we both were like, "Oh, was that a gobble?" And
Did you hear that?
It was like, "Yep, that was a gobble." We heard him, and he was out there, wasn't he?
Yeah. We had to hoof it to get to him.
Yeah. So we started hoofing it to him, and we cut the distance maybe, I don't know, another half a mile probably total. And at one point, like, I don't know, it sounded like there were maybe two birds. Me and John were both like, "Oh, he sounds over here," and I'm like, "He sounds over there, and he might be over there on that ridge." And like, it's so hard, man, in those hills to like figure out exactly where they are and where the gobbles are coming from. But we're like, we're like, all right, let's set up. We think he's on our ridge. Let's just set up somewhere and we'll start calling. And I don't know, about 10 minutes into setting there, we hear crack. Sound like a 410 went off.
Wow.
And didn't hear him gobble at all after that. So,
I think that gobbler made his way to somebody else's truck.
yeah. So that was that morning essentially. Didn't I don't know, we didn't really
We hiked and hiked. We finished the ridge because we had to see what was out there.
yeah.
And it's interesting, these ridges go way back, but then there's pieces, parts, chunks, half of a ridge that are private. So really you don't, if the public pull off has a truck in it, or if it doesn't necessarily mean that there's somebody on the other side.
Yeah.
It was a huge learning experience. And it was important for us to walk and hike.
I feel like I'd be way more prepared if I went down there again next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Ready to go. Yeah.
So yeah, that day, what was that, day 2? Our third day, we only have the morning to hunt. Yeah. So we have one more morning to hunt. So we pack up that night and we head back into that relatively same area. But we break up, we split up. We're like, hey, we're going all for broke. You take this ridge, I take this ridge. And I'll just tell my story, and then you can do yours.
Yeah. So this is Tuesday morning. We're about ready to head home after we're done hunting.
9:30 is our cutoff. Head out if you're not on something or whatever, because we got a drive home. But yeah, we head in nice and early again. Wildly enough, we get there early, and I'm walking back, and there's just truck. And another truck driving past us. And it's like, wow, man, Tuesday. And there's still guys, we do not have the place to ourselves.
No.
Absolutely not. But yeah, I ended up, making my way, working back, trying to move slow, but, doing my best. But I ended up walking back this ridge, and I'm probably a mile back, and the way this ridge was set up, it slowly went up, and then there was a gradual hill down, and then there was a tight saddle at the bottom. So the drainages got steep at the bottom of the saddle, but I had a big, wide, gradual hill that I was on, and there were fallen trees. I didn't hear anything in the morning. So I had nothing to go off of. So I'm like, you know what? I'm a mile back. I'm back here quite a ways. I'm probably halfway down this ridge. I'm going to set up, have a really good setup, hide, and I'm going to call and see what happens. So I set up and down into the saddle, then the saddle comes up. So I'm at the same elevation as the opposite side of the saddle. And there were like 3 little ridges with a couple of spurs on either side. And it just felt like there could be a bird over there. And then again, it went into another saddle and then another ridge system behind it. So this thing keeps going and going and going. But I'm like, you know what? I didn't hear anything, so I had nothing to go off of. Set up, I call with my copper guy. my copper, excited to use it. And
you're getting good with that thing, man. By the end of that trip, you sounded like a freaking turkey, dude. It was
I felt good. Yeah, I'm like, let's put this thing to work. But yeah, so I did a calling sequence and I settled in, and I don't know, maybe not 5-10 minutes later, go, like there were two of them, and they were cutting each other off, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But they were not on the ridge in front of me, that like top point with the spurs. They were behind that, is what it sounded like. They were beyond it. So they were maybe, thousands of yards away versus, 800 yards away. So I'm like, all right.
Thousands. That seems kind of far.
You think, however it is. But I'm like, all right, last day, go for broke. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to go run one down. Huge mistake. I get out. I run out down the hill, get on the little path, get maybe halfway to the saddle, and I look up, and guess who's running down the saddle right at me? A freaking Tom running right at me. And we just like look up at each other. And I'm like, oh no.
How far away was he?
He was probably 100 yards.
Damn.
Was he a
yards.
Tom? Was he a
Yeah, he
big
was a
beard
Tom. Yeah, I wouldn't say like a super huge beard, but he wasn't a Jake, and he was by himself. But yeah, he was like running. I was running like a goofball down the hill, and he was doing the same thing. And we like lock eyes at each other, and he was like, "Oh God!" And he turned around and ran back up the hill, and I'm like, "Oh, I blew it."
Well, now
Why didn't Josh call me and hold me up for 2 more minutes?
He was probably he had to have been roosted close by. He just wasn't gobbling, or I think a lot of times if they could be right over one of those ridges from you, and if they're facing the other way, you might not even hear them. That's the one thing. The birds were like deafening in the morning when it started getting light out, between like the whippoorwills and all the cardinals and all the songbirds. I mean, it was loud. So
that really echoes when you get back into all them ridges that cut like crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
sounded like 1,500 yards away. Probably was 5.
Could have been.
Never know how it'll echo to you.
Yeah, no, I was kicking myself because I could have been tagged out in Kentucky if I would have just been a little bit more patient. But dude, it was the last morning, and I had it in my mind that I was going for broke. Aggressive, get in after them. Yeah, that's okay. I still had a fantastic trip, so no complaints on my end.
Yeah, so I ended up going in a different ridge, like just up from where John was. And I walked in pretty far in the morning before it got light out. I walked in probably 1.5 miles, something like that. And I kept looking at this big field that was back there, and I get all the way back to this big field, and I'm standing up there, and it's like a super high point. And like right at first light, I hear a bird gobble like back the way I came, like 2 ridges back. And I'm like, oh my God. So I like turned around and I start like hoofing it back towards the truck essentially. And he gobbled probably like 10 or 12 times. And I probably ran, 3/4 of a mile and got to like where I thought he was and got set up on him. And by the time I got set up, I never heard him gobble again. But I did get a bunch of hens going and stuff. So I know he was probably close by there. He was in there somewhere. But I never got them to move. And the hens kind of got quiet and moved away. And by that time, it was about 9:30. And I called John, and he told me what happened to him. And I'm like, no. Like, and it was about time to head home at that point, But yeah, it was a super fun trip. It was awesome. The only thing that would have made it better, Bryce, is if you were there.
I know it. Sounds like you guys got a lot of good experience though on.
Learned a lot, right? I think, which is all you can ask for from a trip like that. Getting a double and then like
not getting skunked.
tagging out is, greedy. So I'm happy how it turned out. And like I said, I think we're going to be way better off next year. Have a lot better starting point because we did a lot of driving, a lot of checking out access points because the Boone is really weird. It's kind of like the Wayne in the fact that like a lot of it's landlocked, a lot of it's like weird to access, or like you got to drive through private to get to an access location, and like you're not sure, can I even park here? Because this seems weird. Like there's a ton of that, so driving around and finding that stuff out and checking it out and spending the time doing that was kind of nice because we're not gonna have to do it again.
And it gave us I felt like it gave us ammo. I feel like if we would ever go back, we've got some tricks up our sleeves. Maybe having 3 guys would be better. To drop somebody off and then drive around and let them work an entire ridge and get picked up on the backside. I think is a tactic that would be pretty good for us.
We also learned that the private has more big turkeys on it than anywhere ever in the freaking country.
Usually the case.
Driving out of there, dude, like we were driving home at like 11 o'clock and we took some back road all the way up through to like Portsmouth. And I mean, it was just like giant Tom after giant Tom after giant Tom, like having trouble staying on the road.
Little gardens and
everywhere.
Right.
It was crazy, man. But yeah, it was an awesome trip. It was an awesome trip, man. So we'll definitely do it next year, I think. And, maybe we'll be those guys camping out and taking over a whole parking lot or something.
Right.
Like, I think, I mean, as much as I'm against it, it would be kind of fun, it'd be fun camping, and we definitely save the Airbnb fee.
It looked, if I was one of those guys in that group, I would be having a blast. It looked fun hanging with your buddies, growing out off the tailgate, in lawn chairs with, taking your boots and socks off and just letting it air, letting the dogs air out.
Yeah, that's what they
looked like a blast.
Huge,
Yeah, that one group, they were like, yeah, it's pretty windy, and they were all just sitting around, just doing nothing, like
just hanging.
Yeah, so it looked fun.
Time away, a little vacation for them.
I know there was this one group we passed every morning, and they had a couple different trucks. We kind of got to know all the trucks kind of in the one area after a few days, and they had this like serious camping setup with like actual campers and stuff, big fire going and grills and everything. And every time we passed this campsite, there was this one old guy, and he was just sitting there reading a book every time we went by. And it must have been like his son was like the turkey hunter, and he just went out for like the first couple hours, and then he'd just go hang at camp the rest of the day, man.
If he didn't shoot one off the roost where his son roosted it the night before, he wasn't getting them. He was going to hang all day. He was
nothing wrong with that. He probably put his time in the woods.
Yeah, he's been there, done that. He's not going to be in pain.
You're right.
That was the other thing we talked about a lot, was looking into getting e-bikes.
I've been hearing stuff about that.
That guy was the guy in the group we were talking about was riding an e-bike, and we saw e-bike tracks pretty much down every freaking road we walked.
Really?
Yes. And that would be, man, would that be a time saver? Like just getting back there.
It feels like cheating.
Yeah,
but I'd love to have one.
Yes, I would love to have one. I was looking into them. They're expensive though. So, but like having one for like, just around home deer hunting, I think would be kind of cool.
That's what
keeping
I've
your
been
scent off the
hearing.
ground and
More
stuff.
people
Yeah,
using it, yeah.
But maybe not for $2,000. Maybe they'll come down a little bit in the next few years. We'll see. But it was kind of interesting seeing that. Yeah, but yeah, that was a good start to the 2024 turkey season. So me and John got a double. Bryce, you got to get out. I actually killed a bird this morning, the second day of Ohio turkey season here this weekend. And, we're not going to talk about that this podcast. We'll do another podcast with that. But I'm done in Ohio now. So
You're a camera guy for the rest of the year.
yeah, right.
That's a
Well,
relief though.
I'm gonna try to make it back down to Kentucky at some point.
Should.
Yeah, I got that extra tag, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Bryce, let me know, and I'll come film you laying the smack down. And John,
Absolutely.
I know you'll be out at least once or twice in Ashtabula, so I'll be happy to accompany you doing that too, man.
I'm happy for you guys though. I didn't get the story. They always make me wait to hear the story on the podcast, and I was not expecting a 70-yard smackdown. So hell of a story. Yeah.
Well, we
like
want
a
you to
3-2-1 bang, and far from it. That's awesome.
We want you to have an honest reaction when we tell these stories, Bryce. So
You seem hella good. It's like, no freaking way.
yeah. Yeah, to all the haters out there, John, patterned the shit out of that gun this spring, and he knew exactly what that gun can do. And, to be honest, we didn't range it. We didn't think it was going to be 70. I thought maybe 60 at the furthest.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
Like I said, it was good to go. If I would have pulled that thing out of the gun case, after it's been sitting for 2 years and taking a shot like that, I would be disappointed in myself. But I did shoot. I mean, I put the work in, so I had the confidence in it that, I could make a good shot. So
that's awesome.
But all right, fellas. Well, it is Sunday night and it's late, and I know everybody has to work tomorrow, so we'll finish this one up. Anybody have any parting thoughts?
Let's get on one. I can't get skunked this year again.
Me, Bryce. We'll get it done.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys go over to the Buckeye Bowhunter YouTube channel and watch these videos. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell too, so you're notified every time that we upload a video. You can listen to this podcast on anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, and make sure you like it or do whatever that platform asks too. It definitely helps us out a lot. And yeah, with that said, thank you guys very much, and we will see y'all on the next one.